On today's episode of the Cruz Orthodontics podcast, Dr. Cruz is going to talk about everything parents should expect when their child is getting orthodontic treatment. Stay tuned. Dr. Cruz, when should parents first consider taking their child to the orthodontist?
Usually between ages 7 and 8 is the best time. It gets a little bit tricky trying to give an actual chronological age. What I
Okay.
trying to explain to a lot of our families is that we're typically trying to wait for the upper four adult front teeth to be in. And that usually happens at around age 7 or 8. Once that happens, I have a much better idea as to whether or not that child would benefit from early orthodontic treatment or whether we can simply wait and let all of the adult teeth come in.
So, what are the signs that a child might need orthodontic treatment?
Good question. So, what is really popular and not known all that well is that when a child is 3, 4, 5 years old, oftentimes you'll see parents talk about how beautiful all of their primary baby teeth are because they're nice and straight. There's no spacing in between. That's actually a big red flag. And so if you see a youngster that has no spacing between their baby teeth, it's a pretty good indicator that when the larger adult teeth come in, even factoring in growth of that child, there's still going to be a lot of crowding. So that's one kind of cool little tip that you can kind of look at when your child's really young. But the things that I look at when patients come in and they're older now, they're 7, 8, 9 years old, is we take a panoramic x-ray and we're able to look at all of the unerupted adult teeth. And I can usually tell pretty quickly whether or not they're going to have a significant amount of crowding. And so it's actually important to talk a little bit about. I think that some orthodontic offices are a little bit aggressive in how frequently that they're recommending early phase orthodontic treatment. In my opinion, it really needs to be justified. And so it comes down to just a couple of things. Does that child have severe crowding? Does that patient have a crossbite or an underbite? Or does that patient have a habit that's affecting the growth of their jaws? Those are the three things that we're really looking for to decide whether or not that treatment is justified. All of the other orthodontic issues that happen are very fixable. And so we can usually simply wait and monitor those kids once or twice a year. And then when all of the adult teeth are in, we can do a comprehensive treatment one time as opposed to having to do 2 phases of treatment.
What is the ideal age for a child to start orthodontic treatment? Is there one?
Yeah, it goes back to that idea of it being less about age. So the general trend is that for boys, their adult teeth tend to come in later than they do for girls. I've had some boys that don't get all of their adult teeth until they're 16, 17 years old. I've had some young girls at 9 years old that have all of their adult dentition in. So there can be quite a bit of kind of range or spectrum. And so I usually try and educate families about what I'm looking for as far as kind of dental development as opposed to chronological age. And so, like I said, if it's justified to do an early phase of treatment, it's usually at the point where the child has all 4 of their upper front incisors erupted.
Can you walk us through the typical phases of an orthodontic journey?
Sure. Yeah. The first phase is kind of setting up the foundation. And so you're fixing what I consider to be kind of the major issues or discrepancies. And so you have a lot of control at a young age as to the growth and development of the jaws. And I know that oftentimes people will come and see the orthodontist because they want a nice smile, right? They want straight teeth, they want a nice smile. And I get that. There's a lot of value in that. But what's really neat and also rewarding is that we can actually change the growth and development of a jaw for the better. And so, a good example of that is for some of our younger patients that have a thumb sucking habit, for example. That habit can drastically deform the shape of the upper jaw, which can then become permanent if left untreated. And so we're able to fix things like that at a young age with something like an expander, for example, and braces. And so those are the type of situations where we want to be able to treat at a young age and really set them up for life. And I don't use this as a scare tactic, but when these things go unresolved and the child is then done growing, we don't have the ability to manipulate the jaws. And so now the only way to fix it is through things like surgery. And so, it's
Mm.
unfortunate when situations like that happen.
What happens during initial consultation and evaluation?
We were very thorough in our initial consultation, and so we like to get all of the appropriate records. So we get really detailed photographs of our patients, not just their teeth, but of their face. What's really important in orthodontics is to make sure that you're treating to the patient's face, that you want facial harmony. It's not all that difficult to straighten teeth, but did you do it in such a way to where it really accentuates who they are with regards to their smile and their face and their lip position? And so we take the photos, we take a panoramic x-ray so that I can see all of the teeth, whether they be erupted or unerupted. We do a 3D scan of their teeth as well. The days of impressions are over, so we've got an iTero scanner to be able to scan their teeth. And then I sit down. I spend quite a bit of time with our patients and parents, and I sit down and I discuss the findings. More than anything, this appointment is just about education and showing them what the situation is, whether it's something that can wait and we can just monitor, whether it's something that we should treat sooner rather than later. I'm really not big into pushing and being salesy. So a lot of it is just educating them on what the situation is and what the options are moving forward.
How do you determine the best treatment plan for a child?
More than anything, it's making sure that you are customizing the treatment to that individual. And it could be things pertaining to their teeth specifically, making sure that you're customizing the treatment in that way. But there's also, personalities and emotions and character that you're having to also take into account, especially with younger children. And so you want to make sure that you come up with a treatment plan that is going to fit with them. Are they really active? Do you want to do a removable appliance that could be lost or broken if they tend to be maybe a little bit forgetful? And so you've got to make sure that you're coming up with a plan that is going to set them up and set you up for success. And so the best way to be able to do that is to really sit down with the family. You've got to ask the right questions and make sure that you're listening to them and coming up with the right plan.
Dr. Cruz, what are some of the common treatments for children and how do they differ?
For early treatment, or what we call phase one orthodontic treatment, usually one of the common threads within that treatment is having an expander. Sometimes they're referred to as spacers. What used to be really common, at least when I was a child, is if there wasn't enough room for the adult teeth, you would simply have teeth extracted to make room for all the other teeth. And so it would be typically two upper premolar teeth and two lower premolar teeth that were removed.
Hmm.
And the negative impact on that was that it would affect the profile and lip position. And so even though the teeth would be straight and everything would be fine with regards to the bite, you could see that the profile would actually be flattened. And so, not to mention, nobody wants teeth removed. Why
Yeah.
would you have perfectly good teeth extracted? And so it's pretty rare now that we extract teeth. Sometimes it is justified. But by doing this early phase of treatment with that expander, you can make room for all of these adult teeth in a healthy way. And so that has been really well received for a lot of families that are trying to understand, why in the world am I considering paying for orthodontic treatment twice? I do an early phase of treatment and then we do a second phase later down the road. Why are we doing this? It just makes sense to wait and do it one time. And so that's why I think that it needs to be justified. There are lots of children that don't need these early phases of treatment. But for those that really benefit from them, it's what you're avoiding as far as the extractions, and it's also what you're doing to create a beautiful smile with a beautiful profile and lip position. So that's one good example of kind of a treatment option that's pretty common in early phase.
What are some of the challenges that kids face during their orthodontic journey?
Yeah, a lot of the challenges stem with being consistent, right? And so
Mm,
that's actually even true for some of our adult Invisalign patients. It's being consistent, and I get it. It's hard with anything in life. For me, for example, exercising, staying consistent is always a challenge.
absolutely.
And so, specifically, what I'm referring to is, are you consistent with wearing your elastics? Are you consistent with brushing and flossing your teeth? We use dental monitoring in the scan box, which I know you and I have talked about a number of times. And so that has tremendously helped us to empower our patients to stay consistent, right? And so we're able to communicate directly with them. We're able to send them videos and send them photos of their own teeth. And it helps to motivate them in being consistent. One of the really cool features that dental monitoring has is there's a little button that they can click to show a video of how their teeth are moving throughout treatment. And every week that they do a scan, it adds to that video. And so
Wow.
after you get about 4 to 6 months in, you see these dramatic transformations as to what their smile and what their teeth are looking like. And so that's really motivating for our patients. And so it's always fun to look at those videos. Even when they come in, I like to play them, and we kind of high five and get excited about it. So kind of to your original point, being consistent is hard, and so anything that we can do to help our patients stay consistent is what we do, is what we support.
How can parents support their children throughout the treatment process?
The big one is to do it in kind of a positive, supporting way. Nobody likes a scare tactic, and so you'll even see dentists and orthodontists that if you don't brush your teeth, you're going to get lots of cavities and you're going to lose your
Yeah.
teeth, or there's going
Yeah.
to be these dire consequences that are going to happen. In my opinion, I found those to not really be all that effective, especially for the patients that aren't going to do it anyway, right? And so you've got
Mm,
to try and find a different approach. And so that's where the scan box has been so key for us, is that I can think of a few patients in particular. They're teenage boys. I apologize, I got to call them out, but their brushing was really not good. And so we'd send them photos, we'd circle the areas, we'd be super upbeat, and it would be coming from me too, which usually kind of catches their attention, is that, hey, this is Dr. Cruz talking to you, and I see that your brushing is not good, and I really want to motivate you to do better. I'm going to check next week. I know you got this. You can do this. I'm here for you.
mm,
And so what we'll see is that the next week you can tell that they've done a better job, and then we get super fired up, and then we can celebrate that because it's something real, right? They actually did something real that you can celebrate, as opposed to it being fluff. And children can tell when you're misleading them, or when you're overhyping something that
yeah.
is not legitimate. And so if you can get them that way, it tends to have longer lasting effects.
So, what can parents expect during regular orthodontic appointments?
The appointments have become incredibly efficient now, at least here in our office. And so, what I like to do, on the back end, it's actually good that we're talking about this, because I don't think a lot of families get to see what I'm doing on the back end. So, oftentimes, a lot of my weekends are committed to reviewing the scans that all of our patients are doing, and then
Mm,
coming up with a very specific, detailed plan as to what we're going to do at their appointment that's coming up the following week. And
wow.
so when that child sits down, we know exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to do certain wire sizes. We're going to start or stop elastics. We're going to talk to the patient about a certain area where they really need to focus on with regards to their brushing. And so there are no questions as far as what we're going to be doing, what our orthodontic assistants are going to be providing for our patients. And so the appointments are also quite a bit more efficient as well. You're not having to wait for me to sit down and look and decide as to what needs to be done. I'm certainly there and I'm interacting with our patients. But I think a lot of our families really appreciate that, oh my gosh, they're really looking at these scans and they're really coming up with a plan and catering to my child's needs. It goes a long way.
How do orthodontists ensure that the treatment process is going as planned?
Yep, I think that we touched on that a bunch, and I'm so excited about being able to provide better and better quality treatment. It's always an insecurity of mine, if I'm being completely transparent, is am I doing the best treatment possible for our patients, right? Can I be better? And so, there's always that concern. And so with the scan box now and with being able to really study our patients' teeth and bite, and coming up with a plan prior to them coming to the appointment, I've found that I'm able to actually sort of up my game just a bit in being able to provide better treatment and better results. And so for somebody that's been doing this for 20 plus years, it's nice to be kind of reinvigorated and excited about a way to be better. And so that's been kind of a real key component to what we've been focusing on this last year.
Are there differences in treatment timelines between younger patients and older kids, but still a child?
Yeah, the difference in time between younger children and older children is probably negligible in my opinion. There is a significant difference between children and adults. Children's teeth move quite a bit more easily. It takes less force, and it's they also move more quickly. So yeah, there's definitely a noticeable difference between those two age groups, but not so much between an 8-year-old and a teenager, for example.
I know we talked about thumb sucking before. Do any of these habits like that affect the timeline of treatment?
The biggest way that they affect the timeline of treatment is whether or not they stop the habit. And so I've learned over the years that you need to make sure that whatever appliance you're using to stop that habit stays in longer than you think it should stay in. And so,
Mm.
obviously we want to get excited about the fact that the habit has stopped. Um, but as soon as you take that appliance out, there is a decent likelihood of relapse. So usually that timeline is an additional 3 or 4 months, so that it's just that the idea of that habit is so far removed from their mind that it's not likely to start up again. That's what can really change the timeline of treatment. But as far as getting the bite and teeth corrected once the habit has stopped, it's amazing how quickly that can happen.
Finally, do you have any advice for parents to help make the orthodontic journey a little smoother?
Yeah, I think that more than anything, not projecting your orthodontic experience onto your children is a big one. And the reason I say that is that, you know, at least in my experience, when I was a child to, now being now being middle aged, things have come a long way. And so the orthodontic experience is nothing like it used to be. And so I think a lot of parents, understandably so, just assume that it's probably about the same as what they had done. But it's simply not true. It's faster as far as treatment time. It's more comfortable. Obviously less soreness, and so there's a lot of things to be happy about. And so I just encourage families, come in, meet us, have a consultation, and then you can kind of be the judge.
Great. Well, Dr. Cruz, is another great episode. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.